Welcome back to Epilogues, an unpacking of the weekly Haftorah. You're listening to Rabbi Yaakov Trump. This week we're going to be looking at the Haftorah of Parshas Vayechi. It is a short Haftorah of only 12 psukim, which is drawn from Melachim Aleph Perek Beis, the first 12 psukim in that Perek. This is a deathbed Haftarah. It is about a person who is on their deathbed commanding their children, much like what we see in our Parsha with Yaakov Avinu commanding his children on his deathbed, which is the reason why it is chosen as the source text for our Haftarah. We have seen beforehand in Parshas Chayei the first Perek of Melachim Aleph. This is now the second Perek, the follow-up, after Shlomo Melech has been anointed as king in the lifetime of David. Now David Melech gives his last wishes to his son, Shlomo. The first thing he does in the first 4 psukim is really to set the tone of what it means to be a king. He says, as he draws the days of his death draw near, it says, he explains to Shlomo Melech that he is going to be going in the way of the world, which means he's going to die. And he implores him to be a man. What does that mean? You need to guard that which is the guardianship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to follow all the laws of the Torah. And in all that you succeed in everything that you do. And in order that Hashem should fulfill the words he prophesies to me, which were saying, if your sons will keep the law and follow me with all their hearts and souls, there will not be an absentee on the throne of your children from all the ages. Which brings us to the question is monarchy inherent or contingent? Meaning, once David Melech was appointed the king of all of Israel, was it something that his children needed to earn, or was it something natural that they received? It seems, by the way, David Melech is speaking to Shlomo, that only if they follow the Torah will they deserve kingship. That's not usually the way kingship works. If we go back to Sefer Shmuel Beis Perek Zayin, when David Melech is promised to have a son, then in that place HaKadosh Baruch Hu seems to promise him, your kingship will be true to you forever. It'll be an eternal kingship. So it sounds to be that it's natural whether he does or doesn't do what's in the book. However, later on, when you see in the future, when Achia Hashiloni, who's the great prophet, turns to Yerovam ben Nevat and encourages him to break away, to create the cessation, the kingdom of Israel, at that point in time he says, I'm allowing you to do this because David Melech's children do not keep on the path of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'm not going to fully take away the kingship from them. You're going to take 10 tribes, they'll only have one, in order that I should leave a little bit of the promise I was given to David. Which means to say the following: is it natural that David Melech will have the legacy, the dynasty of kingship? Yes, that is true. How long will that be absolute? Well, it'll be true to a degree, and the degree is dependent on actions. If Shlomo Melech will live up to, if his children will carry on doing what is said in the Torah, then yes, in fact, that will be wholesome, and they will be the kings of all of Israel. If they do not, they will still have the throne, but it will be a much more diminished throne. And therefore, that's what David Melech is saying over here is, there is no guarantee. Just because you are my son does not mean to say that you will be king over all of Israel, and neither you his son after that, and that's in fact what happened. We now move into the next section of our Torah. In this section from Pasuk Hey to Pasuk Yud, David Melech gives his son, Shlomo Melech, a number of last-minute duties. These are the settling of the scores. There are 3 scores to settle, 2 negative and 1 positive. The first one is Yoav ben Tzeruya. David Melech tells Shlomo that he is saddened that Yoav killed 2 great people. The names were Avner ben Ner and Amasa ben Yeser, and he killed them in Demei Milchama B'Shalom, when they were at peace, when they were unexpecting, they were not on the battlefield. And therefore David Melech says, don't allow him to die a peaceful death, ensure that he gets killed. Number 2, the children of Barzilai Hagiladi, you should do chesed, and they should be able to be sustained from my table forever, because of what they did for me when I was fleeing from Avshalom. And finally, Shimi ben Gera, the son of the tribe of Binyamin, he cursed me a terrible curse, and I told him, I made an oath that I would not kill him, but I'm going to make sure that you do not acquit him of his sin, and you need to make sure that he's got rid of. And that's what happens. Then David HaMelech dies, Vayishkav David, Vayikover Be'ir David, and he's buried in the city of David. This is going to be the burial grounds of the monarchs. Now, let's go a little further in this story. So just appreciate what's going on over here. Who are these three people and what did they do? Yoav was the general of David. Yoav was one of the greatest loyalists of David HaMelech throughout his entire life. He protected David HaMelech at every turn, so much so that sometimes he went beyond the call of duty of what David HaMelech wanted. Two examples. When David HaMelech was the king of Hebron, David HaMelech was the king of only the kingdom of Hebron, of Yehuda, for 7 years before he became the king of all of Israel, at which point in time the main monarchy was held by the son of Shaul HaMelech, by a man by the name of Ishbosheth. The general of Ishbosheth was a man by the name of Avner, who was previously the general of Shaul HaMelech, one of the people who actually sought to kill David upon the orders of Shaul HaMelech. And Avner was not so impressed by his new king after a while. Ishbosheth was not shaping up to be the king he should have been, and so Avner defected and came to David HaMelech with a bid for peace, trying to ensure the bridging of the two kingdoms. He made his overtures. He placed his bid on the table in terms of trying to make a bridge between the two kingdoms, and he left. At which point Yoav enters and hears about that Avner was here. Avner, the essentially the rival general, and he tells David HaMelech, this is not all right. It's clear that Avner is a spy. Avner is not doing the right thing. He summons Avner back as if in the name of David HaMelech, and when Avner comes to him, he slays him in a very deceitful way. He grabs his beard and uses a sword to cut through his fifth rib and kills him on the spot. That's what happens with Avner. An act done what seems to be in protection of David, David, but there is a personal agenda here as well, and that is that Yoav's brother Asael was murdered in self-defense by Avner, and this seems to be also the unburdening of that personal debt as well. That's the first piece. The next piece that happened with Yoav was that when David HaMelech was being pursued by his son Avshalom, David HaMelech conquers Avshalom. Ultimately, Yoav kills him against David HaMelech's will and wishes, but then there's another defection, which is under a man by the name of Besheva ben Bichri. David HaMelech sends out an army to quell that rebellion, but he dismisses Yoav on the accounts of Yoav killing his son Avshalom. Even though Avshalom was a threat to David, David HaMelech did not want him to die. Yoav kills him, David dismisses Yoav, and he sends instead Amasa ben Yeser. Amasa ben Yeser is to lead the people against the new rebellion under Sheva ben Bichri. On the way, Yoav comes along and slays Amasa also deceitfully and takes the reins and continues the march on Sheva ben Bichri successfully. Again, he is acting on behalf of doing the best will for David HaMelech, but at the same time, it's again personal because he was dismissed. And that seems to be the trend over here. Doing something which is very much a loyalist action for David HaMelech with a personal agenda overlaid to it as well. He is told that these two actions are seen as something which he needs to get rid of him for as well. What did Barzillai do? Why is Barzillai's children to be honored? We see in the 19th parak of Shmuel Beis that when David HaMelech had to run eastwards to the Transjordan, he was supported by Barzillai HaGiladi, and he came out. He was an elderly man. He came out and he looked after David. Kilkel es hamelech b'shivtoi b'machanayim. He was a rich man, and he extended his table and made David HaMelech feel very welcome upon his fleeing from Avshalom. What you see as a fascinating thing, David HaMelech takes it very personally, Hakara Satov, when he was fleeing from Shaul many years before, and Naval was not willing to give David HaMelech bread and wine. David HaMelech felt that was treason against the king. When Barzillai Giladi goes ahead and looks after him, he feels indebted to him so much so that he wants to ensure that his descendants will be eating off his own table as well. And finally, Shimi ben Gera. Shimi comes from the opposing tribe of Binyamin, from where Shaul HaMelech came. And when David HaMelech was fleeing from Jerusalem, from Yerushalayim, from Avshalom his son, Shimi took advantage of that moment of weakness, stood on the adjoining hilltop and cursed him a terrible curse, calling him an Ish Bli Ayil, an evil man, Isha Damim, a man of blood. It seems that Shimi is rolling into this, the debt or the guilt of having of the deposing or the death of Shaul HaMelech, which is a very, very strong accusation to make against David. Then when David HaMelech comes back in power, Shimi comes to him and begs forgiveness. He comes and for his curse, David HaMelech makes an oath not to kill him, but ultimately does not acquit him and tells Shlomo HaMelech to take care of this as well. Notice that this is in contrast to Shaul HaMelech, when he first became king at a moment of weakness. There were many people who, B'nai Bli Ayil, who did not greet him, did not send a offering to him, said he is not going to be a king. And later on, when Shaul had the opportunity of getting rid of them and taking vengeance or justice for these people's dismissal of him as a king, he did not take advantage of that. And the Gemara actually says that there was a criticism on Shaul HaMelech. He should have been more strong with these people, because it was not just his own personality that was being attacked, it was the kingship that as well. David HaMelech, on the one hand, personally does not take offense to Shimi, but as a king cannot let that go as well. Why did David HaMelech not settle these in his lifetime? It seems to be that these are complex actions. It seems to be these are actions of David HaMelech to not have an opportunity of really finishing up in his lifetime, and he asks Shlomo HaMelech to do. Why is it so important that Shlomo HaMelech does this? It seems to be that David HaMelech is laying the table. He's closing up all the books, all the debts that may have been, all the issues that may have existed. David HaMelech wants to be cleared up, to be squared away before he goes forward. And for that to happen, Shlomo HaMelech, in order to Shlomo HaMelech to have a open field, no debts in the past, these need to be closed as well. And finally, that leads us to the end of our Torah, where we hear, Vayamim Hashem malach David al Yisrael 40 shana. David HaMelech ruled for 40 years. There were 33 of those years in Yerushalayim and 7 years in Hebron. Shlomo yashav al kisei David aviv vatikon malchusay ma'od. His kingship was greatly established, and the reason is because all the personalities of the past were taken care of before Shlomo HaMelech went into the future. With this, we conclude the Haftorah, and we have a wonderful and meaningful Shabbos.